The order, please. I begin with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Going first. May we have roll call, Madam Secretary?
Potentially. Yes. Sorry. Mr. Chrisman.
Here.
Mr. Fedorcha.
Here.
Ms. Franz.
Here.
Ms. Husak. Here. Mr. Kern.
Here.
Ms. Culp. Ms. Snyder. Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you see on the agenda, this meeting is being recorded and streaming live to the public, so bear that in mind. I see there are no public comments this evening, so we'll move right into review and approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion here.
Second. Motion, second, thank you. Additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So ordered. CLIU, Ms. Husak.
Thank you. We did have our December meeting. We temporarily or roughly approved the 25-26 general operating budget. So for our district, no real change, no increase coming for the general operating budget. Again, that does not include services that our students are. It's strictly just the general operating of buildings and those types of things, so not to confuse the two. So we will see that in upcoming agendas to be voted on our budget. During our meeting, we did see a holiday presentation by some of our students, which is posted on our website, where they sing the 12 Days of Christmas. I recommend going out, taking a look at the Facebook, Instagram, all of those social media pages, and our website, cliu.org, to go look at some of those things. It's fantastic to see our children really excelling out there and showing what they can do and be so happy doing it. So I do recommend going out and taking a look at that. Want to say thank you to all of those that participated in our Christmas basket raffle this year. Just a little over $4,500, I believe, was the total that was raised for that. That did go to students and families in need during the holiday season. So that specifically gets toys, heat, all of those types of things to our families who need it. So thank you for those who participated in that. On Friday, January 10th, which was just this past Friday, we did present through the Children's Foundation some bike and strollers to some students. There is, again, that's on our website. Feel free to go take a look. It is fantastic to see the smiles of children who never thought they would be able to ride a bicycle, to get on and start pedaling that bicycle, or the parents and how happy they are to see their children doing something that sometimes we take for granted. So thank you again for that. The last thing I have is, I know it's only January, but June's going to be here before you know it. June 17th, Dr. Stoker, put it in your calendar, June 17th is our golf tournament, again out at Old Homestead. So hopefully we can see some of you out there. It is open to the public. Feel free, come out and register. Have some golfers around June 17th. I will be partaking, so thank you again to those that do. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fedorcha.
Yeah, thank you very much. We did have our December 11th meeting, and it was a reorganization meeting. Carol Fasciano from Parkland and Audrey Matheson of Allentown were re-elected as chair and vice chair for the next year. Presentation was also given to a Teacher of the Year award by Dr. James Hartzell. And this award is an ongoing perpetual award that he will be giving from a foundation. And it is presented to a teacher of this year is Dr. Heather Martoli. And she has done a lot with our medical students and also has done a lot in community-wise in which she assisted during certain events in reviving some people who were having heart attacks at the mall. So she has done exceptional work with the community, as well as being an exceptional teacher. On December 17th, we held our annual Technical Honor Society, and this year we had 100 students recognized for the Honor Society. And I know a number was from Northern Lehigh, too. Our Senior Awards is May 29th at the PPL Center. And also, we had a presentation of the 25-26 budget that was also given to the superintendents, I believe, and the business managers. In the future, we will be releasing the numbers, and then we'll be going for an approval after the districts have an opportunity to approve the budget. We also had a presentation of the 25-30 strategic plan. And in our strategic plan, we looked at many things, and particularly I've also met with the superintendents, and I want to thank Dr. Link for working with our executive director and putting a lot of this together this year as our superintendent of record. And we are looking at PDE funding, system changes in the school, as well as enrollment changes, and possibly looking at how our wait lists are going and how we're going to look at whether or not we need to add classes to meet that wait list. And certainly we are having a number of programs that are having wait lists right now. And as far as that is, I'm finished. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I noticed you have the CLIU budget in front of you. I thought the LC3I budget was going to be distributed, but apparently it didn't get here.
So we will be sending that out electronically, as well as the CLIU budget, LCTI, and the L-Tri-C budget.
Very good. The budget, not basically, but it's exactly the same for the participating districts this year. Obviously, it's based upon your student representation, and so our budget is going to drop by a couple $1,000s. It's not significant, but at least it's not going up, so that's the positive side, and we'll be looking for approval of that at our February meeting, and that's all I have. You received copies of all the committee reports there. Here we go, student reps.
Good evening. I hope you all had a great break. Tonight I'll be going over some of the happenings at the high school, as well as recapping some of the events that happened last month. Math, English, and Biology Keystones will finish Tuesday, January 13th. We want to congratulate all the students who have worked so hard to complete their Keystones in this last couple of weeks. After Keystones have concluded, lunch and learn remedial sessions will begin again for students who need help or are failing classes. National Honor Society Induction Night is Thursday, January 30th. The high school's SAD Club is conducting a pierogi fundraiser. Leo Lions Club is hosting a canned food and clothing drive all throughout the month of January. All donated items will be dropped off at Emerald's Food Bank. L-Tri-C and LCTI are collaborating to create an honors level program for juniors and sophomores interested in pursuing a career in the educational field. Informational meetings about this program will be held in the high school on Tuesday, January 28th at 12. That's all I have for tonight, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. A representative from L-Tri-C will be at the high school on Wednesday, January 27th at 12:30 to discuss classes and programs with students interested in attending L-Tri-C in the future. Senior Caitlin Barthold recently scored 1,000 points in the basketball game on Friday, January 3rd at their game against Lehigh. She was also awarded Blue Ridge 13th Female Athlete of the Week. Now on to sports. Boys basketball is 3-6 in leagues and 3-10 overall. Their senior night is Friday, January 31st. Girls basketball is 6-3 in leagues and 9-4 overall. Their senior night, along with winter cheer, is Friday, January 17th. Wrestling is 1-3 in leagues and 4-7 overall. Their senior night is Thursday, January 23rd. And that is all I have for this evening. Thank you, and all have a great night.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the student reps? Anyone? No? Okay, where we are we? Attorney Eddie, your turn.
No report this evening, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I was ready to jump to page 7 there when I turned that over. That would have been pretty good, but come on. I like the old ones better. They're easier to turn. There we go. I think it's your turn, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. First, I would, Jayla and Olivia, thank you very much. You are absolutely welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Or if you have studies you would like to attend to and you want to excuse yourself, that's okay as well. First, I would like to follow up actually on Mr. Fedorcha's report and share the names of our National Technical Honor Society recipients from Northern Lehigh High School that were inducted into the National Technical Honor Society at LCTI before the winter break. And they are Ryan Allen Deal. He was inducted for electronics technology. Gabriella Gentile was inducted for cosmetology. Savannah Marie Hall was inducted for marketing, and Jerry Vargas was inducted for heating, air conditioning, and refrigeration. So congratulations to our 4 students from Northern Lehigh High School. It was a wonderful ceremony over at the community college for our LCTI students as well. Next, I am very pleased to announce we have recently received 2 very generous donations from local groups. First, we received a $10,000 donation from the Lehigh Valley Educators Credit Union. This donation will allow us to continue our Backpack Buddies program, overseen by Mrs. Fink and our Food Services Department. This helps us assure that our students do not struggle with meal insecurity over the weekend and holidays. We are currently supporting 92 families through this program, so this really goes a long way in our schools and in our community for our families. Mr. Fedorcha, I believe you have a symbolic check to present to Mrs. Fink this evening.
You can't catch this one. I believe you have gotten one that could be captured. I'd like to present this to you as Vice President of the Credit Union on behalf of the board and all its members. This is a $10,000 award to you for your food programs, and we have been doing this to all of our 9 school districts throughout the valley. It's just one way that LCTI, or not, sorry, the community college, yeah, listen to me, sorry. The credit union would like to give back to its members who are all teachers and support staff in the districts. So we want to give, we like to give money back to those people when we're doing so well at the credit union. So we're giving, again, $10,000 to 9 school districts.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you both. Next, I was very pleased to learn before the winter break that we are receiving a new donation. The first time this donation is coming to Northern Lehigh School District, and it's coming from the BOTAC Foundation. So Northern Lehigh, along with several other districts in the area, excuse me, received a $2,000 donation from the BOTAC Foundation, which can be put towards mental health supports for students, such as covering the cost of co-pays and deductibles or professional development for staff. So this is a new kind of grant put out by the BOTAC Foundation. And we know sometimes that we are very fortunate in our schools here that we have mental health providers that can come right into our schools, but sometimes the parents may be asked to pay a copay or a deductible. This money can be put towards covering the cost of that for those families to remove any barriers from our students having access to the supports that they need. So we are very grateful for that donation as well. So on behalf of our students, our staff, our administration, and our school board, we are very appreciative of the ongoing and generous support of the BOTAC Foundation and the Lehigh Valley Educators Credit Union. And up next for my superintendent's report this evening, I would like to turn it over to one of our architects from Alloy 5, Emily Liuzza, and she's going to present on kind of what are some potential next steps for the school board to consider specifically related to transitioning to a common campus model. Emily?
Thank you, Dr. Lane. It's nice to be back in front of everybody. I'm Emily Leeds. I'm with Alloy 5. I'm a project architect there. And I was sort of in charge of the feasibility study that we completed back in October. So that was about a 5 or 6 month process of looking at all of your buildings in the physical condition and all of your buildings from a programmatic and capacity standpoint. So a few conclusions. So go to the next slide, please. We came up with a few paths forward, and one of them was the common campus model. So if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So your common campus model is really focused on getting all of your buildings on one site, this site, where currently 3 of your schools already exist. And from a reasoning standpoint, there's improved educational opportunities, efficiencies, and safety and security in all of, in condensing your campus. That would really shine if one of your schools was not located remotely. If you could go to the next slide, please. So a few steps to proceed with this common campus model. Really, it's a 3-step process, and this is the order that it would have to follow in order to be as efficient as possible, and also in order to kind of accommodate all of your students at once without having any awkward transitions or any sort of temporary modules or phasing that would have to happen. So step 1 is really an addition at the existing middle school, and what that does is it moves 6th grade out of this building and into your middle school, which not only helps the capacity here, but aligns your curriculum better in your middle school. The nice thing about this option is you start building, and when that is done, you move students over. There is no, students don't have to be relocated during construction or any sort of phasing issues like that. So that is kind of an easy transition there. Step 2 is an addition at this building, which would then make Slatington Elementary a K-5. And that addition would happen in multiple phases, mostly because of the size. The addition here would be a lot bigger than the middle school addition, which would just house 1 grade. And then your final step is that Peters Elementary comes offline. We don't know what that looks like yet. We just know that that would be the common goal, is that the one remotely located campus would come offline. If you can go to the next slide, please. So in a timeline form, how that would look is essentially, and this can all change based on borrowing capacities and when things commence or when dates change. But this is kind of the sequence we were looking at. So as soon as that middle school addition would be complete, you can start the design process. So the gray bar here is the design phase, and the blue bar is the construction phase. So from the middle school standpoint, your design time is about 12 to 14 months, where your construction time is about 12 to 18 months. Slatington Elementary is, again, a little bit bigger of a project, so your design time is about 18 to 24 months with a 24 to 28 month construction timeline. Peters coming offline, that doesn't really have a construction time associated with it at this point. It would depend on what that building could become, but that would happen at the very end. So timeline-wise, if you were looking at maybe about 6 to 7 years, depending on how you would pace out these projects, but this is kind of that sequence that you would have to follow. If you go to the next slide, please. So these are the 6 phases that we like to refer to in architecture, and we are kind of at the end of our pre-design and programming phase. So we're calling that completed. So you've completed step 1 of essentially moving forward with this common campus model. And that is what we refer to in the feasibility study as concept design, is what we would consider pre-design. So your floor plans, the images we've provided in the feasibility study, those fall in a schematic design. So essentially we're at the beginning of schematic design for all of those projects. After that, we would move into design development, which is kind of solidifying what systems are used, solidifying a footprint, a size, and then construction documents is really where that begins to get detailed and prepared for the next phase, which is bidding and permits. So that is when that set of documents goes out and we procure contractors, and then your construction administration is when everything is getting built. So that's that blue bar in the construction timeline phase. If you could go to the next slide, thank you. So at the conclusion of our feasibility study, our contract with Northern Lehigh, Alloy 5's contract with Northern Lehigh is ended. So that kind of phase is over. As decisions or questions kind of come up along the way, we are here to, answer any questions, provide any additional documentation that you might need. We've, provided a few Excel files or, maybe a little bit more in-depth things that we didn't include in the printed book. But we can also bill hourly until we know what a project will be. And then a formalized contract and fee can all happen at pretty much any point when we know what a full scope of a project is. So, and this is all, it can be, but this will all be on a project by project basis. So it is not saying that if you decide to move forward in documenting the middle school edition, that you also have to, essentially sign on with us for the Slatington Elementary edition. It can happen in phases, in sequential phases as well, kind of just like how your projects are going. So you can go to the next slide. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Yeah.
One question, you said there would be no disruption in the middle school
Yes.
project to basically the sixth grade.
To sixth grade.
But will there be a disruption of the classes at the middle school during the construction, as well as will there be, except probably noise, be any disruption to the educational part of this building when the Peters section will be built?
Okay, so for the middle school, it's actually a fairly simple link and connection at the end. So yes, there will be noise, there will be contractors on site, there will be site disruptions. As far as inside of the building, that will only happen depending on the level of renovation that is, that would happen, along with, maybe we had spoken about potentially the existing library becoming classrooms or an immersive learning studio. So it can be done in phases depending on the level of those renovations. It can happen over summer, over breaks. But the main construction for that sixth grade wing will be not involving the rest of the building. So from that standpoint, yes, but once we get into the renovation, it can become, a little bit more muddied.
But then Slatington
And then Slatington
would be similar?
would be similar, because nobody would move out of Peters until all of this addition would be complete. So it would be similar. This is it's bigger, and it's also a little more complicated than the middle school because you have a pretty significant slope here. So we'd actually be adding on to kind of both ends of your building. But other than that, there would be no disruption internally. Here, there would probably be less internal renovations than at the middle school because of the age of the building.
The reason I ask that is I know when we did renovation of this building in the past, it was both educationally as well as disruptive of classrooms.
Absolutely. Yours was very extensive,
was
and they
just-
were,
yeah. But so it's not gonna be that impacting then?
Correct, especially in this, I would say
In this
especially
building.
in this building,
Okay,
because
thank you.
everything has kind of already been renovated to a level. The middle school there are some more dated elements in that building that we would want to bring up to code, like the bathrooms, things like that we would want to bring up to building code compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions at the moment? Thank you for your presentation, appreciate it.
Very much.
I'm going to steal Mr. Chrisman's thunder at this point in time. And at our committee meeting, he asked a question that I was really impressed with. And if I may, Chad, he went around to some of the administrators and said, what do you think of this project? And I guess since some of us weren't here, particularly some of the people in the audience didn't hear this, I'd like to kind of open that up again, and you can start anywhere you want. Tell us, from an elementary perspective, middle school perspective, what are your feelings? How's this going to work for you, in other words? So, and anyone, go ahead, take it. But
We can start with the youngest, if you
Okay.
like, Mr. Green. So I did share at the committee meeting, I do see great advantages to safety and security. I think there's advantages bringing, we have a full-time school police officer at Peters, but consolidating that where there are multiple school police officers within a very small distance can only improve safety and security. And I did mention that I think there's a lot of educational opportunities
that we would be able to afford to our K through 2 students that we don't currently now. One example, if you remember, I gave was that we have a career fair, and Mr. Briner is able to bring and just walk the kids over at the end of the day, where anytime we have to do anything off campus, it requires like planning and money and busing and trying to move somewhere else. So having us all on one campus, I think gives us great opportunity to have high school students come over and tutor elementary school students after school and work within our classrooms. And I think that, again, there's flexibility and opportunity that are not afforded now that the common campus would give us.
Thank you.
Sure.
We're going to move up the,
I guess we are, because we usually do. So, thanks for the question, Mr. Green. Certainly, when I think about this, I'm 100% on board with this idea. And really, it's in my mind, it comes down to like 3 things. First and foremost, I think it's developmentally appropriate, specifically in curriculum alignment, but also, certainly in just managerial things. As somebody in a building with 3rd graders and 6th graders, a 3rd grader is very different than a 6th grader, very different. So it's very developmentally appropriate. The second thing in my mind that pops out is kind of what Mr. Schneider already mentioned, is increased educational opportunities. Oftentimes, I wish we could offer more, especially to our 6th graders, from an athletic standpoint, from clubs that we don't have, as well as to like our other students at Slatington, 4th and 5th graders, working with younger students that we don't. Yes, we work with our 3rd graders, but it'd be really neat to see them working with our K through 2 kids. And then the third thing that sticks in my mind is the safety aspect. There's safety a lot of times comes down to time, and when we're consolidating things to one localized area, we're decreasing that time, which is increasing safety. So those are the things that stick out in my mind, and I'm 100% on board.
thank you.
I'm in complete agreement with my colleagues. Developmentally, 6th grade belongs in the middle school band. They just do. By band, I mean that grade span. Standards are written 6 to 8. A lot of curriculum programs are written 6 to 8. That is the true, middle school concept. That is the model for it. I'm thinking of, new curriculum, science curriculum, ELA curriculum that's coming in. It's designed to be spread out over those 3 years. It would be very nice to have all of the students under one roof, all of the faculty and support staff under one roof. That allows for more collaboration and allows us to really see that growth from grade 6 to grade 8. Also, as Mr. Briner was saying, it's just more socially appropriate to have 6 through 8, in that building. That's my perspective as a principal. Academically, it makes sense. Program-wise, it makes sense. I said at the committee meetings, I'm also a parent, a taxpayer, and an alumnus. And in each of those 3 viewpoints, I also support it. As a parent, my youngest son, Jackson, just came from Peters to Slatington. So, my wife and I are very much aware of the advantage of having him on this campus. I think there is a safety upgrade that comes with having the common campus model. As an alumnus of Northern Lehigh, I want the best for my home district. I think we're due for some upgrades. As was said, the middle school can be dated. It is showing its age. I like to say it has character, but we definitely do need some improvements, some code improvements and things. So, but that's what I want to see as a taxpayer and alumnus. That my home district is getting the best we're able to do. So, full support through each of those lenses.
Thank you. Dr. Bally, I know this doesn't affect you directly, but do you have a comment you want to make?
No, and I think, as they all said, I echo what they've said. And I also really appreciate, wanting to hear our perspective. That just goes to show the support that you always have for us. And I've had the privilege of being, a K-5 principal, a K-6 principal, a 6-8 principal. I've had the privilege of seeing, grades in certain bands, like Mr. Hauser said, and there is a lot of wisdom, I believe, also in putting 6th grade with 7th and 8th. As Mr. Brenner, as everybody said, developmentally appropriate. I've seen it. I've seen the most success in a model that way. And then selfishly, my curriculum background and just pedagogy and the art of teaching. Anytime when you can get elementary and early elementary teachers with secondary teachers, amazing things can happen. Like you can just learn, and you wouldn't, think of that often. Like, 11th and 12th grade teachers going down and seeing what 1st grade kids can do and 2nd grade teachers can do, but it is remarkable and it is a profound learning experience. So that collaboration amongst the faculty is probably some of the best professional development I've ever seen as an educator in my 27 years. And then, lastly, but probably primarily important, is the safety piece. Anytime you have a group together on the same campus, it alleviates a lot of the police force and all that. So I just appreciate, you guys, being concerned and wondering what our feelings were, and I support it 100%. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Fink, I think you made some comments.
So having a common campus model would definitely be beneficial for food service as well for a couple reasons. Just being more efficient at what we're doing overall, having my staff under one roof and the ability to share staff. If we're shorthanded one day, it's a little bit easier to do that when we're in closer proximity to be able to get through the day and serve students and do what we need to do in that sense. We work with a lot of different vendors, so it's nice when we can have fewer delivery stops, fewer trips that I have to send Keith on every day to just logistics in general. For the food service department would make it much easier to be at a common campus for sure. So those are the main things from my perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Geis, any feelings on athletics or anything? I'm sorry, you weren't here at the meeting, but if you have a comment you want to make.
The one thing that I'll say is our school district is in such a huge demand from the community and internal demands that additional gym space that would be provided through this would be huge. We have a great partnership with our community, the NLYAA and different organizations, and it's tough. We have to turn some groups away from the availability of some of our facilities. Also, having everybody on one particular campus, especially in the evening, would increase our security as well. So I try to be brief in that.
Thank you. Is Mr. Mann out in he was here, I don't know if he's still here. Yep.
Maybe while we get Mr. Mann's attention, if you would like to, maybe technology or even special education services, and then we can queue up Mr. Mann.
All right, I'll go with technology. For us, it would be efficiency. Right now, trying to service Peters Elementary with a limited staff. We don't have a staff we don't have enough people to cover every building. So whenever we have to do tech support at Peters Elementary, it does require our staff to drive, 15 minutes out of town to maybe fix a quick problem and then come back into town. So for our department, it would really be efficiency. And also there would be a drastic savings, but you would see a little bit of savings too, because right now we have to maintain an internet connection between these buildings and Peters Elementary that's off campus. So that is a connection that we pay for on a monthly basis. And we also would be able to share a little more. We would probably have less network equipment overall if we would go to a common campus. Again, it's not going to be a drastic savings, but for us it would be a slight savings in that aspect, and it would be really efficiency for us.
Thank you.
Sure. For special education, it would definitely be efficiency and training when it comes to our paraprofessionals that are in all the different buildings. It would be helpful to be able to have everybody on one campus to be able to share, as well as some of our students that are in life skills programs are not with their peers, simply because we can't afford to have a special ed program over at the middle school. So they're not with their peers. Their third grade's actually over at Peters. And then we skip the middle school just simply because we don't have enough students in that building. So they're not with their peers, so that's a big thing. They'd be able to be with their peers.
Thank you. Mr. Mann?
And again, with the operations standpoint, it's pretty much the same as Mr. Hill. We would save with people, with my staff driving back and forth from Peters every morning. Another thing is, with me, is longevity. It's a lot easier to keep 3 buildings running than it is 4. And the oldest building that we have right now would be in Peters. That's my whole thing. Coming to a common campus, I would have everyone here working on 3 buildings instead of having number 4.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think we pretty much hit most of the departments.
Maybe
but-
Dr. Stoker or Mr. Pine?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Why not? Scott?
Sure. So, I mean, I can say a lot of the things that were already said in terms of developmentally appropriate, et cetera, right? I mean, I would have said the same thing 5 years ago as the principal of Slatington Elementary School. I think the thing that I wouldn't have necessarily known to say, not being in this position, was how valuable it would be to have our staff and our faculty within proximity of each other. And I know this just from working with Peter so much over the past 4 years and seeing so many opportunities that were really a struggle to get together or were missed at times in terms of getting them in the same spaces as our teachers, to Dr. Volley's point, at Slatington and the other schools. And I think one of the examples that resonates with me right now is that we sent out our math content area leader from the middle school and our 2 math content area leaders from Slatington Peters to this series of workshops at the IU. And them working together has just really spurred on some incredible conversations and progress in terms of where we need to go and getting people in the right direction. We saw a bit of that with the ELA adoption last year as well, but I think that we've got professional staff that are now separated by geography, that if we had more ability to bring them together on PD days without extensive travel, or even just after school meetings like curriculum council, I think that could be really powerful.
Thank you.
I'll address the student side of things. I think it provides us opportunity and flexibility that we don't have currently. You'll see us talk tonight about some of our historically underperforming groups. I can tell you as far as like our ESL students, we have a paraprofessional that goes between all 4 buildings, and it's very difficult. She was spread very thin, jumping around between the buildings. If we have Peters up here on this campus, it makes it a little bit easier. Also, we have opportunities for gifted students. Some of our gifted students go between buildings. Like we have somebody in Slatington that would go up to the middle school students take courses at the high school. Although we don't have many students identified at Peters, we are identifying more students for gifted services. We don't have those opportunities. They wouldn't be able to come up to Slatington necessarily and take classes at a higher level just because of the time to come up here. So I think it also provides opportunity and flexibility for our students as well. And I agree with everything else that everyone said too. I'm fully in support of the single campus model.
Thank you. You want to do a wrap?
So I think our administration has really put a lot of thought into this. If we receive direction from the school board to continue to research this further, I would like to put together a number of surveys to send out to parents, guardians, the community at large to gain additional input through some online surveys to provide even additional information to the school board to make an informed decision. I agree with everything that was said. I know a lot of the thought that we put into this would be we would be able to actually reduce our district down to 2 schedules, an elementary schedule and a secondary schedule, not a primary elementary schedule, an upper elementary schedule, and then a secondary schedule. We see a lot of benefits from that with what we can do within those hours, everything from transportation to even potentially looking at start times and end times of the school day. I want to really dig into more to what parents think about that, what it would mean for a family that potentially has children at Peters Elementary School. Currently, Peters Elementary School, say Slatington Elementary School, and then a middle school child. That's 3 different drop-off and pickup times for buses, as well as if they're actually coming here to pick up their own children. I would like to hear more input on that as well. So, I'm excited about the potential that is here in this project if the school board would, direct us to move forward. I think there's a lot of great things that can continue to happen, and we're ready to take that work on.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask my fellow board members, what are your thoughts? What are your thinking? I think you're finished your first phase, your part 1. You probably need some direction at this point. Where do we want to go? So I'm going to open up to the board, conversation, thoughts, etc. Anyone, anywhere, go.
Listening to the administrators and really realizing also what impact it is to have everybody on the same campus for many, many reasons. I definitely support looking at what we're doing. I think it is the best thing for education, best thing for our community, and extremely important for our teachers and our students. So if you're looking at me to make a suggestion of anything, I would think that we're on the right track. We put a lot of time into the project already, looking at with the feasibility study, and I think we should continue looking. That doesn't mean we're going to do anything particular, but I think if we stop looking now, we will regret it. So I think we should move ahead. My opinion.
Thank you.
Chad, sure.
Yeah,
I think it's great to hear everyone's personal and professional opinions. It's actually refreshing to see that everyone's pretty much on the same page, and you guys have a lot of very valid points. My only potential holdback is that everything sounds great. What's it going to cost us? How's it going to impact the taxpayers? So before, but yes, I think we should absolutely continue to check it out. It sounds great. It looks great. I support it so far. But before I give it the final thumbs up, I'd like to see, obviously, the biggest hurdle is the financial impact on our residents.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a motion at this point in time or anything like that. I'm just looking for thoughts, feelings, and a sense of direction for both the architect and the administration. So thank you, Chad.
Yeah.
Anyone? Go, sure.
I think in general, hearing what our administration says and that I agree with Mr. Chrisman. I think the biggest concern I have to making such a large change is what it will cost. We have the cost of how much it could potentially be, but when I say cost, what is it going to cost the community? What's it going to cost taxpayers? What's it going to look like, and what does our budget plans look like? We've done some really great fiscally responsible things over the last couple of years to prepare us to get to this position to make some good decisions and some hard decisions. So that goes to administration for helping us make those decisions, and the board, current and past, to be able to get to this point to even think about looking at this potential change, which would be a significant change that could potentially occur over the next 7 to 10 years. I think that's the other part of it that we have to think about too, is that, it's a big chunk. It's, take an elephant, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Sometimes those potential things can get there, but I am in support of having an idea of what financially it would look like, with making the least impact to the community in a whole, but success and future thought of our students' education and our administration, staff, and student safety and security.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to run with it?
I think with a decision this size, we need as much information as we can get. So I'm in favor of moving forward with collecting the information, doing the surveys to the parents, just to see what the community thought process is. I mean, at this point, I'm in favor of moving forward with this project. However, there are still some pieces that I need for my own personal information.
Bob, you want to take?
Yeah, I guess obviously, educationally, this is the best thing to do for our students. You know, as a board member, our business is students. It's our business, our staff, it's our administrators, that's our business. You know, but the other side is we have a liability to the community. And we all know financially where we are. And the apple's only so big. So if we keep taking bites out of that apple, what are we going to give up? Well, if we do this extensive project, probably one of the biggest things we've done since we built the high school, which was 1980 when I first came to the district. What are we going to give up? Because we're not going to be able to pay for everything. They're just not. I mean, even if we float some bonds and we get some good loans or whatever, however this is going to be, you know, financed, the bottom line is there's only so much money in the pot. And that's my biggest concern. You know, making a decision that's going to impact, even though I see great benefits and I love everything I'm hearing and I'm all for it and I'm an educator my whole life. What is the impact down the road for other things that we need or need to do educationally? That's the only thing. I think I need to see the numbers and the affordability. You know, I wish we had about, you know, and I go on record by saying this, I wish we had 25 distribution centers somewhere in our township to help pay for the tax base that we don't have. You know, that's my feeling. We just don't have it. You know, when maybe a supermarket and a car dealership is your number one employer in the district, we have some really big responsibilities to make financially. So that's where I'm at. I mean, love the input from the administrators. I agree with everything you're saying, but I really have to see the numbers and what the impact's going to be. So.
Do you care to turn it, or do you want to?
Yeah,
No, I was looking at Angela.
No, I agree with Mr. Kern. I mean, sounds great, but you just can't keep taking.
We are tentatively looking at the financial people being here for our finance committee meeting next month, so they'll have some of the answers. I think what I'm hearing is people are interested in the program, they want to look forward to it, but we're not ready to jump off that cliff yet until we see some of the numbers, and I think that's what I'm hearing. So I think the direction is let's proceed with that, let's get some numbers, maybe some input from the community, as I think a few people remember. I would make one other point, and that is, when you did the survey, you did a bunch of things and you called them red and yellow and green and blue and all that other stuff. Even if we don't go ahead with the project and do the, you know, the reassignment, so to speak, there's still a lot of red and orange and yellow things in there that are millions and millions of dollars worth that need to be done, even if we don't do the consolidation. So, and they're not going to go away. They're going to be necessary. I guess I don't know what the difference is between if we just do the red, orange, and yellow, or do the whole project, where those numbers come in. But you know, there's still going to be some costs associated with doing this, whether we like it or not. So, are you comfortable with your direction, sir?
I am.
Okay. Do you want to add anything?
I think
to
Mr.
that?
Crispin had something else to say.
Yeah, there was just one other thing. I just wanted to, I know we talked about it before back there, but us giving you guys the basically the thumbs up to keep going, at this point, there's no additional cost. I just want to make sure that
when we transition into, when we look back to the presentation that was up there, once we start getting into schematic drawings, I think it was called, then it's either going to be an hourly rate or we would have to kind of do an addendum to the current contract.
So a lot of the, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the things that you have asked for, numbers and, you know, a list of a comparison between the capital, what we're calling capital improvements, which is really your maintenance log, versus just comparing the common campus model, we have all of those numbers already. So it's really just essentially feeding you different information that maybe you didn't see side by side, or maybe you didn't have really the full breakdown of everything, but we have already done all of those documents. So if, it's really no further design services for us at this point. It's just providing you maybe some additional documentation to back up the statements that you're all making.
So it would take some time and effort on the part of the administration to get some of that together, but as far as financial dollar outlays, I'm not seeing any, if I'm reading it correctly. Okay? I'll open, anyone in the audience that hasn't commented, would like to comment, or, I know you're not on the sheet, but if you want to say something, go.
I would like to say something. So I'm kind of speaking here under 3 different hats. I'm a community member and a taxpayer. I'm a parent.
Louder! We of the younger generation extol the wisdom of the great leader and educator. He first spoke these.
I mean, I can be louder.
I apologize.
So anyway, I'm a tax-paying member of the community. I also have children in 2 of the schools at this time. No one's at Peters anymore, and no one has reached the high school yet. And I'm also president of our elementary PTO, which serves both elementary schools. From a very simple PTO standpoint, we would be able to do so much more for both elementary schools if we did not have to drive back and forth between the schools constantly, which is a small pro to doing this. But I think that we are able to provide an awful lot for our students and for our staff. And if we could provide more, that would just be lovely. As a parent, unfortunately, the way this plan looks, none of my children will actually benefit from it, which is a huge bummer to me. Living about 500 feet from this building, I despised my children's years at Peters. They spent an hour in transportation every day, which for us was inconvenient, but also they didn't get home until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Once I had older children who were in different youth sports and things, this made our lives extremely hectic. If everyone was at one location, it would have been so much easier. But as a tax-paying member of the community, I recognize that I live in a community that's never going to have enough money. Our borough doesn't have enough money, our district doesn't have enough money. That's just a given. However, the reason we chose to purchase a home here is because even with the higher property taxes, our mortgage with escrow payments are lower than they would have been in Parkland School District, in East Penn School District. We're still saving money. So if I need to pay a little bit more money in taxes for other children to have the advantages that my children probably won't see, as my youngest is in 4th grade, I'm okay with that. Because these are changes that I would have loved to see when my oldest entered 6th grade. 6th grade is a struggle in the elementary school, and it's not because things are being done wrong, it's because demographically it's just not, the logistics don't work. There's one principal for 4 grade levels. None of our other buildings have this. You have 3rd graders who are essentially still very young children in the same building as 6th graders who are, well, 6th graders. I think that they would benefit immensely from being in the middle school. And I think the younger children would benefit immensely from not having the distraction that is the 6th graders sometimes in school. So yeah, I realize that there's a cost involved, and I don't like paying more money for things any more than anyone else does. But if it's an investment in the general future of our community, and if we can keep our schools at a place where we are competitive with other districts and other schools, then that's going to keep people living within our districts. And if we get to a place where we can't be competitive anymore, then people will start to move away. And that's, you know, I love that we're a small town, but I don't really want it to disappear. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I think you make a good point, that the amount of money you write on your check when you send in the tax collector is really your millage rate times your assessed value. And if my home, I know, was down in North Whitehall Township, it would probably be assessed for, $200,000 more. So when you add A times B, the numbers can be deceiving at times, and I think a lot of people overlook that. But you make a good point there. The same with the price of the house. It's cheaper here, so your mortgage is cheaper, and you put that all in a pot, and it can make a difference. So thank you for your input.
I think you're waiting on me, aren't you? I have to go after Katya, which is hard apparently. But like a lot of the other people who spoke up, I wear multiple hats. So, as NLEA leadership, I have that perspective. I am also a taxpayer. My children also go here. So like so many others, I see it from different perspectives. And the teacher's perspective is I've not heard anybody say they don't want this, aside from the nostalgia that we all have for Peters. None of the teachers have come up and said anything negative to it. I think a common campus would, echoing what the administration said, would be super beneficial to the learning environment, not just for our students, but also for our teachers, and developing K-12 curriculum that makes sense, where we could have those connections between our bigs and our littles. Like Katya said, my kids may not benefit this, maybe the telltale end of it for my youngest, but I also am here and I'm invested and I'm not going anywhere. I'm also not old enough to retire anytime soon, so I would like to teach in a band that makes sense for what I do. I mean, that's a very selfish claim. I teach at the middle school, so I would love a 3-grade band myself. So.
Don't take this wrong, but you can have more children if you want to experience what's going on. Seriously, you can. It's like. Thank you for your input. Anything to say, Tim?
I was just thinking there ought to be savings that would be realized too by moving to a 3-building campus too that hasn't really been discussed.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments anywhere? No? If not, thank you all for your input. I appreciate it, and hopefully the administration has some sense of direction and we can go from here. You have anything else, Dr. Link?
I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you for everyone's input, and we'll continue to explore all options. And I'll get together with the administrative team to build those surveys to get out to the different groups.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have item I, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Stoker.
Thank you, Mr. Green. January is School Board Appreciation Month. On behalf of the stakeholders in the Northern Lehigh School District, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our board members for their dedication to our district. We recognize and appreciate the time and effort you put into governance of our school district every day. As a token of our appreciation, at each of the board members' place this evening, you'll see a library book. That library book is being donated on your behalf to one of our school libraries. Our librarians unfortunately could not be with us this evening, but I do have some sentiments to share on their behalf. From Mrs. O'Donnell, our elementary librarian, she would like to say, "Dear members of the school board, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for your recent donation of books to our elementary school libraries. These new materials will help support our students' reading and learning experiences. One of the books I chose is Kindness is My Superpower for Peters Elementary. This book aligns perfectly with the school culture of promoting kindness and compassion in our daily lives. We are using this book, for now a borrowed copy until they receive the one that's here this evening, for a lesson on kindness and tying it to the recent school-wide campaign on spreading kindness like confetti that Mr. Schneiderite spoke about at Peters at our Education Committee meeting. For Slatington Elementary, one of the books I chose is a New York Times bestseller and a school library journal best book selection, Fish in a Tree. The story of the main character's challenge with dyslexia as a 6th grade student portrays the importance of embracing differences and the power of resilience. This book will resonate with many children and teachers. We appreciate the effort to enhance the resources available to our library and are looking forward to incorporating these books into our collection. Your support helps us continue to provide valuable educational tools for our students. Thank you again for your contribution. From Mrs. Tiedman, our secondary librarian, thank you for your support of our school libraries and the commitment to providing our students with access to resources that support their pursuit of information and inspiration. Your donation to the libraries is greatly appreciated, as is the work you do for our school community. Each of these library books will start their journey as they are processed for library circulation. Library staff will add them to our digital catalog and get them shelf ready so students can enjoy them as soon as possible. There is no telling how many book bags, lockers, nightstands, coffee tables, and desks they will encounter as their adventure continues after their checkout, nor how many learning minds and growing hands they will connect with, or how long their readers will remember their time together. Thank you for making these adventures possible. So on behalf of our librarians and all of our administrators, staff, students, thank you to our school board members, and these books will be donated tomorrow on your behalf to our school libraries. Next this evening we have our annual data presentation. I'm a bit under the weather, so I hope I can get through without starting to have a major coughing. Good evening and welcome to Northern Lehigh School District's administrative presentation of the 2023-2024 state assessment data. This includes last year's state assessment data. Before we begin, we ask that you jot down any questions you may have and hold those until the end of the presentation. If you can, please reference the slide if possible so we can go back and reference that. Here's the information on the composition of the state assessment that we will be discussing this evening. Years ago, Pennsylvania transitioned away from a single school performance profile, or SPP score, and now uses a dashboard approach for presenting district and building level data through the Future Ready PA Index. This slide includes the reasons for that change. They include varied indication, data transparency, and a system that is easier to navigate. There are three main tabs within the platform. They include statewide assessments, which include the ELA or literature, math, or algebra 1, or science or biology assessments. The second one are on-track measures, and the last one are college and career readiness. Some of these indicators apply to all students at all levels, while others only apply to some schools or cohorts of students. All released data can be examined on the public site, futurereadypa.org. Before we examine the data, it is important to make you aware of some information and upcoming changes since this system was implemented. Number one, you'll see the tested subjects. Know that there are some changes coming about in science. For 23-24, which was last school year, science was assessed in 4th grade. Moving into 24-25, science will be assessed in 5th grade. Yes, that is the same cohort of students that will be tested in 2 years. By 25-26, the science assessment will be fully aligned to the Steele standards, and biology will be fully aligned in spring of 2025. The second one is we aim to have all students proficient or advanced. You'll see on a separate slide that the 2023 graduating class was the first to implement pathways to graduation. We'll talk about that a little bit further in the next slide. The third and fourth bullet there talk about interim targets. These are the goals with a baseline being established that we have to reach each year as we progress to the year 2033. And lastly are the colors. You'll see colors of red, green, blue, and yellow in some cases. These are to be thought of like a stoplight. Red should give us, should have us stop and examine the data. Yellow are areas for pause. Green mean things are going well. And then blue, which could be light blue or dark blue, mean that we are exceeding some of the standards that we are supposed to meet. More to come on these areas in the presentation. Next is graduation pathways. In 2018, the state passed Act 158, which is considered graduation pathways. As discussed earlier, the class of 2023 was the first to graduate under these graduation pathways. This is important because the emphasis previously was on state tests, like the Keystone exams. It still has a strong emphasis. However, students are now asked to graduate under those pathways, which has taken some of the emphasis off of the Keystone exams. Okay, we'll now begin to look at the 23-24 data. First up will be Peters Elementary School and Mr. Schneiderite.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. Good evening again, everyone. So let's begin, and we'll jump right into Peters Elementary School. Again, this represents last year for the entire school year, 23-24 school data. And the first slide will show the data regarding the regular attendance rate. This is a lagging indicator, so although we're presenting tonight data from last year, this is actually to the 22-23 school year because that's how it's reported. You can see that the percentage of students not chronically absent at Peters Elementary School was listed as 86.1%. This is 8% above the state average, yet falls 8% below that statewide performance standard, which we are all hoping to achieve. Next slide, please. This next slide shows the ELA, or early literacy data, for the 23-24 school year. Last year, we used the Dibbles Next assessment and did 3 benchmarking assessments at the beginning of the year, which is on the left-hand side, middle of the year in the middle of the slide, and at the end of the year on the right-hand side of the document. You will see 3 colors, green, yellow, and red, very consistent with what Dr. Stoker just said related to the other data you'll see. Green represents our Tier 1 students, students who do not need any additional support to be successful. Yellow represents our Tier 2 students, students who need strategic support to be successful, and red represents our Tier 3 students who need intensive support to be successful. So when looking at this data, what we hope to see is from left to right, an increase in the green, or core support, and a decrease from left to right in the red, or intensive support. In kindergarten, which is the top line, students who were listed in the green at core support went from the beginning of the year from 53% all the way up to the end of the year on the right-hand side to 84%. This represents a 31% increase. And students in intensive support in the red went from 29% at the beginning of the year to just 2% at the end of the year. So looking from left to right, a lot more green and less red. Right below that, in first grade, students in the core support in the green category went from 47% to 59%. An increase of 12% from the beginning to the end of the year. And students in the intensive category went from 26% to 20%, a 6% decrease. And finally, in second grade, the third line down, students in core support in the green went from 61 to 71%, an increase of 10% from the beginning to the end of the year. And students in intensive support in the red went from 29 to 16%, a 13% decrease. So all of this demonstrates at the grade level, the final and the very bottom there, it says all. It's our comprehensive as a school. So as a school, we went from the green category from the beginning of the year 53% to the end of the year 71%, which is an 18% growth as a school. And in core support, and then in the red, the intensive support, 28% to 12%, a 16% decrease, again, as an entire school. I'm very proud of this data. I think, again, it shows the growth throughout the year, and just to make the board aware, it's not the same benchmark in each part of the year. The test gets harder. So you would expect that if you stayed the same, it was about grade level growth. The fact that from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, with a more increasingly difficult standard, there was great growth shown at all grade levels. Next slide, please. Next is our math data. This data represents Imagine Math from last year. And first we will take a look at kindergarten. There are 5 potential categories for this data. Advanced is orange, proficient is green, basic is yellow, below basic is red, and far below basic is blue. What we hope to see is an increase in the green and the orange from left to right, which is the beginning to the end of the year, and a decrease in all other colors, especially the red and the blue. In kindergarten, at the beginning of the year, and we see this every year, it starts off, before we teach them anything, at a very low number. So at the beginning of the year, before we taught them anything, 6.1% of students were advanced or proficient, with 75.4% of students being below or far below basic. By the end of the year, that greatly reversed. We had 54.8% of students advanced or proficient, and 16.5% of students being below or far below basic. This shows a 48.7% growth in proficiency and a 58.9% reduction in students being below or far below. Next slide, please. In first grade, it's the same data points. At the beginning of the year, we saw 45.4% of students were advanced or proficient, with 44% of students being below or far below. And then by the end of the year, on the right-hand side, a lot of green. We had 93.1% of students considered advanced or proficient, and a 4.6% of students being below or far below. This shows, again, a 47.6% growth in proficiency, and a 40.1% reduction in students below or far below. And next slide, please, Dr. Stoker. And finally, in second grade, beginning of the year, we began at 57.9% of students advanced or proficient, with 21.5% of students below or far below. And by the end of the year, 90% of students were advanced or proficient, and 2% of students were below or far below. Again, shows some great growth, a 32.1% growth in proficiency, and a 19.5% reduction in students below or far below. So just to summarize, we see what we typically see. The kindergarten has the most to grow. As we go up, more students in first grade, and even more at the beginning of the year, are considered proficient or advanced. Yet we always try to get them further than they get, and we got them there last year. Next slide, please, Dr. Stoker. So now some of the focuses at Peters that are currently ongoing this year. In ELA, as you know, we implemented a new ELA program called the CKLA Amplify program, along with switching to a common assessment tool with DIBELS 8, that is K through 6, and a common intervention tool, M-Class. This new program was determined last year after investigating 4 total programs. And the new program required a significant change to our schedule to accommodate 2 hours of Tier 1 instruction, 1 hour being in explicit skills and 1 hour being in knowledge. These changes have been supported by ongoing professional development, which started this summer and is ongoing. We have a session a little bit later this week with our interventionalists. One requirement for this new program was that it was aligned with the science of reading framework. We are continuing our focus on structured literacy, both at our Tier 1 program and within the interventions we provide to students. Next, in math, we changed our schedule to allow for all 3 grade levels to have longer math blocks that provide teachers with greater flexibility. As you know from the many presentations over the past year, the STEELS standards for science, we are focusing on creating classrooms of scientific inquiry. Prior to this year, all of our science teaching was embedded within our ELA curriculum. Within a new ELA curriculum and with the new STEEL standards, this year we are looking to provide more flexibility in our longer math block to allow teachers to make choices about the best strategies to use during that time. So sometimes for our long math block, we might have a long math block of instruction and practice. Sometimes it may be a medium-sized math block of 45 minutes with some intervention opportunities or some small group practice opportunities. And sometimes it's math and science together, or just a long science experiment where they get a chance to do some hands-on activities. So this gives our teachers a lot of flexibility with what they're doing and gives our teachers a chance to teach, explicitly teach science instruction rather than it just being a part of what we do within our ELA curriculum. And this year, we are using the IXL program as a benchmarking tool as well as an intervention tool for students. And that is now K through 12. And finally, we have continued our use of Zern as a Tier 1 support for students. In science, I already mentioned that we have a new schedule. We are also using Mystery Science as an instructional tool, K through 2, and gives teachers even more options during that flexible schedule to be able to engage in science instruction and hands-on activities. And social studies. Regarding our social studies instruction, it has always been embedded within our reading program. This year, with the CKLA knowledge block, we are finding that social studies instruction is far more robust than it has been in the past. Along with some of the typical topics you see in many elementary schools, the body, insects, nursery rhymes, things of that nature, students are exploring ancient cultures and world religions. I've observed a second grade class discussing the difference between Chinese New Year and Diwali, and I've seen first graders discussing and learning about ancient Mesopotamia. It's been a great expansion on what we are doing within our social studies instruction at the K through 2 level. And finally, our last 2 bullet points related to our social emotional learning at Peters. With all of our new scheduling changes, another addition is an SEL period built into the day for social skills teaching at the elementary level. One thing we know is that all teachers should be teaching social skills all day long. And now there's a place in the schedule where teachers are able to do that on a daily basis on top of finding those teachable moments throughout the day. We are continuing revamping our tiered intervention system to provide more timely interventions for students to address any behavioral needs. And we continue to work with Valley Youth House and Mrs. Moore, who's just wonderful, to provide extra social skills support for our students on top of the support they receive from Mrs. Cromer, our school counselor, Mrs. Smith, our social worker, and Ms. Petrelsky, our BCBA, and all of the services that they provide. So now I'll turn it over to Mr. Briner at Slatington Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneiderite. Good evening, everyone. I am going to be reviewing the data from Slatington Elementary School. So if we could move to our first slide. This first slide is similar to the slide that Mr. Schneiderite showed relative to attendance. This performance measure represents the percentage of students enrolled in school 90 or more school days in a year, and 90% or more of those days. As Mr. Schneiderite said, it is a lagging indicator, which means that this is actually the 22-23 data for attendance. It also comes with a color, and the color designation for this particular data, if it's blue, it means that you're exceeding the performance standard or you're above the 75th percentile. If it's green, you're meeting the performance standards, which means you fall in between the 25th and 74th percentile within the state, and then if it's red, you're under the 24th percentile. Or it means you're not meeting their performance standard. So Slatington Elementary School was 91.6% of our had 91.6% of our students who were enrolled 90 or more days attend 90% of that time in 22-23. That put us in the green category, and we were higher than the statewide average of 78.1%. But did not exceed the statewide performance standard of 94.1%. Next slide, please. This next slide breaks down achievement data for Slayington Elementary School, and that's achievement on the PSSAs. At Slayington, we're the first band of grades to take the PSSAs, so all of our students take the PSSAs assessments in grades 3 through 6 for ELA and math. For science, this particular year, last year, it was in 4th grade. This is a composite score for the building in the Future Ready Index, and this data also includes the statewide average and the statewide 2033 goal. The colors are also related to the interim targets, but they are not represented up here on the board. So if we were blue, we're meeting or exceeding the statewide goal. If we're falling green, we're meeting or exceeding the interim target. If we're red, we're not meeting the statewide goal or target. And if it were gray, it would mean that there wouldn't be sufficient data or it wouldn't be applicable. That will come in on the next slide. So in ELA, the PSSA was taken by students in 3 through 6, and 45.5% of our students at Slayington were proficient or advanced. This was down from the year prior, which was 47.3. We also did not meet the interim target of 70.3 and fell below the statewide average of 53.9. In math, the PSSA was taken by students in 3 through 6. 38.3% of all students at Slayington were proficient or advanced. This was down slightly from 40.4% the year prior. We did not meet the interim target of 55.8. We did not exceed the statewide average of 40.2. In science, the PSSA was taken only by grade 4, and we were 80.3% of our students were advanced or proficient. This was up from the previous year of 70%. We did meet the interim target of 73.1, and we exceeded the statewide average of 59.2. Again, it's important to note that specifically in science, the assessment is actually moving to 5th grade, and our current 5th grade students will take that assessment again this year. However, that assessment will only be a field test, and it will not count towards the Future Ready Index for next year, well, for this year, but students are required to take the assessment for participation purposes. Next slide, please. This next slide is breaking that data down even further, just into advanced achievement, and all 3 categories here are in the gray, which again means that it's not an applicable piece of data where they assign a color. Okay, so in ELA, 8.1% of all of our students were advanced in the PSSA. This was down from last year, or from the previous year, of 9%, and it fell below the state average of 12.4. In math, we were 10.7% advanced on the PSSA. This was also down from the previous year of 11.6, and we also fell below the state average of 15%. However, in science, we were 41% advanced on the PSSA, and this was up from the previous year of 33.1, and we also exceeded the statewide average of 26%. Next slide, please. This slide takes that data and disaggregates it down even further into grade level cohorts. So the percentage of students achieving advanced, it shows the percentage of students achieving advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic, and it also factors in the PASA, which is the Pennsylvania Alternative System of Assessment. And this is given to some of our special education students. So it factors in that number as well on this slide. The slide also shows the overall building proficiency score It shows each grade level proficiency score, and it shows a historical look at the data over across a couple of years. So in third grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient scores was 32.1%. This was lower than the statewide average of 55.8%. In fourth grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient was 50.9%. This cohort actually increased just under 1% from 49.1% the previous year, which was just under the statewide average of 51.4%. In fifth grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient scores was 51.2%. This cohort saw a 9% increase from the previous year, from 42.2%, and it was just under the statewide average of 52.2%. In sixth grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient scores was 46.7%. This cohort dropped slightly from 48.5% the previous year and was lower than the statewide average at 53%. Overall, Slatington Elementary was 45.4% advanced or proficient on the ELA, PSSA, and PASA, which was lower than the statewide average of 53%. Historically, we've been on the decline the past 3 years, dropping from 51% in 21-22 to 47.9 in 22-23 or 22-23 to 45.4 in 23-24. And current trends are below the pre-pandemic levels of 63.7%. Next slide, please. This is the same exact information, however, it's looking at it through the lens of math. So in third grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient scores was 39.4%. This was lower than the statewide average of 51.4%. In the fourth grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient was 46.4%. This cohort saw an increase of 6.4% from 40% the previous year, but was slightly lower than the statewide average of 48.6%. In fifth grade, the percentage of students of earning proficiency was 42.3%. This cohort dipped from the previous year of 45.3%. But was under the statewide average of slightly under the statewide average of 42.8%. And in sixth grade, the percentage of students earning advanced or proficient scores was 22.3%. This cohort decreased significantly from 35% the previous year and scored lower than the statewide average of 37.4%. Overall, Slatington Elementary was 38% advanced or proficient in math on the PSSA and PASA, which was lower than the statewide average of 40.4%, and an overall drop from the previous year of 2.5%. Historically, there was a slight dip this past year. However, our trends have been in a positive direction for math, and it's still below the pre-pandemic levels of 47.6% proficiency. Next slide, please. This slide is the same information, but it's just looking at it through the science lens. It does not give an overall building proficiency. However, since we're only looking at one grade level, that 82.1% proficiency in green is the overall for our building in science. Okay, so in fourth grade, the percentage of students earning an advanced or proficient was 82.1%, and that is higher than the statewide average of 77.1%. Historically, despite a slight dip last year, Slatington has continued to see a positive trend in science and has increased slightly from the pre-pandemic levels of 79.2%. Next slide, please. Now we're going to kind of switch gears and look at Slatington Elementary's data from switching from an achievement lens to a growth lens. And this performance measure on this slide represents the academic growth the students are taking on the PSSAs relative to their entering achievement and the average statewide growth during the reported year. So the PBOS academic growth score represents the school's impact on the change in the academic levels of groups of students from year to year. This score is not a percentage, so I'm not going to be speaking about this in terms of percentages. It's actually a growth index that's converted to a 50 to a 100 point scale. This particular data point, if you're seeing blue, it means that we are exceeding the growth standard. Green means that we're meeting the 1-year growth standard. Red means that we're not meeting that growth standard, and gray means that there's insufficient information to provide a color. So in ELA, our growth score for all students at Slatington was 100. This is up from last year, which was 69, and was greater than the statewide average growth score of 75.4. This puts us into the blue category, which means that we have significantly exceeded the statewide growth standard of 70. In math, our PBOS growth score for all students was 75. This was down from last year, which it was 90 last year, but is still greater than the statewide average of 74.9. This puts us into the green category, which means that we are meeting the growth standard of 70. In science, our growth score was 100. This is the 4th year in a row that Slatington had a PBOS growth score of 100 in this area. It was also it's also more than the statewide average growth score for that year, which was 74.7, and it puts us into the blue category, meaning that we're exceeding the growth standard. Next slide, please. This slide takes that data and disaggregates it down into grade levels. It looks at it with numbers and colors. What you will also see on this slide is that grade 3 is not included. And the reason that grade 3 is not included is because there's no previous data points to create a growth standard score for grade 3. So you will only be talking about 4th through 6th and across all grade levels. Excuse me. So the value-added growth measure in this particular slide is measured yearly, and it is reported in different colors. So these colors are similar but slightly different. We actually added a couple colors. So on this slide, you're going to see dark blue, which means there's significant evidence that the school exceeded the growth standard. Light blue, which means that there's moderate evidence that the school exceeded the growth standard. Green means that there's evidence that we've met the growth standard. Yellow means that there's moderate evidence that we did not meet the growth standard. And red means that there's significant evidence that the school did not meet the growth standard. The value-added performance measure on 2023 in ELA, 2023-24 in ELA for PSSA in grade 4 was in the light blue, which means that there was moderate evidence that we met the 1-year growth standard. It was dark blue in 5th grade, meaning that there was significant evidence that we met the standard. And in 6th grade, we were in the green, which means that we met the standard. Across the 3 grade levels, we fall into the dark blue category, meaning that there's significant evidence that we exceeded the 1-year growth standard in ELA. For comparison purposes, Slatington was in the yellow category in 22-23. During the 22-23 administration, and while we are trending in the wrong direction related to achievement scores in ELA, our growth index scores are at a level where we are exceeding a year's worth of growth. Next slide, please. This is the same information, or the same type of slide that I just shared, just looking at it through the lens of math. So in math, in 4th grade, we were in the dark blue, which means that there was significant evidence that we exceeded. We were in the red in 5th grade, which means that there was significant evidence that we did not meet the growth standard in 5th grade. And in 6th grade, we were in the green, meaning that we met the standard. Overall, as a building, that puts us into the green category, meaning that we met a 1-year's growth standard. For comparison purposes, last year, the previous year, 22-23, we were in the dark blue category, meaning that we were exceeding a year's worth of growth, and we've dipped a little bit in growth in math. But overall, we are still meeting a year's worth of growth as a building. Next slide, please. This slide is the same type of information, just looking at it through science, the science lens. We fall into the dark blue category for science, so significantly exceeding the growth measure. And overall as a building, we're in the dark blue, obviously, because there's only one grade level. And ultimately, for comparison purposes, we were in the dark blue the previous year as well. Next slide, please. Switching a little bit of gears here, we're looking now into the college and career readiness indicator. This indicator represents the percentage of students who demonstrate engagement in instruction and activities to satisfy career, education, and work academic standards mandated by Chapter 4 regulations and in accordance with our district comprehensive plan and Chapter 339 guidance plans. School entities must demonstrate that students have met full continual career readiness expectations as defined for each grade level span. Those grade level spans are pretty much this information gets reported in 5th grade, again in 8th grade, and then again in 11th grade. We have to provide evidence showing that our students are meeting these standards. So if we fall into the blue category in this indicator, we exceed the performance standard. Green means that we met the performance standard. Red is we're not meeting the performance standard, and gray is insufficient again. So Slatington earned 100% on career standards benchmarks in 5th grade. That means that all of our students are meeting that standard. This exceeded the statewide average of 91.4 and the statewide performance standard of 98%. Next slide, please. This slide is talking about our building score. As Dr. Stoker said earlier, the state has gone away from the SPP or looking at building scores overall, and we've gone to more of a future ready index. However, a building score is still reported. The building score is comprised of available data for that has assessment data, growth data, attendance data, and graduation rate. While it's not factored into our future ready index, you can certainly see progression over time with this building score, and it is used currently in the teacher effectiveness model as well. So in our particular building score, we climbed in 23-24 to 77.9. So we saw a slight dip last year, but overall that puts us into the green category of post-pandemic, and we are higher than pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. All right, so that was a lot of data that I just presented. So here's where we're going. Obviously, we know that we were trending downward in ELA, and we saw a downward trend for a number of years, which prompted us to look into the ELA curriculum and ultimately do a curriculum search. With the support of the board, we have adopted our Amplify CKLA program and Amplify ELA for 6th grade specifically. We've, at this point, implemented that. We've run professional development for our staff. We've provided family information meetings related to the change. The implementation has run relatively smoothly, or as smooth as implementations can go, should I say. And the new program has helped us to provide a structured approach to literacy instruction aligned with the science of reading, and also increased our writing and reading of authentic text. So we continue to build common assessments related to the new program. We're working on pacing, we're working on scope and sequence, and we continue to grapple with the composition of our grades for reporting purposes. While it may take some time to fully overall see the benefits of change, we are confident with what we're seeing already. There is a significant change in what we're seeing, as we've discussed multiple times over the past few months. We've also implemented Dibble's 8th edition as our universal screener in grades K through 5. We are continuing to use IXL in grades 3 through 5 as additional information and specifically as our screening tool in grade 6. We have also implemented M-Class in connections with Dibble's 8 and Amplify. M-Class is a Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention delivery system, and we are continuing to do that. It's honestly too early to tell of an impact since we are only getting into our second benchmarks next week. So emphasizing the structured use of IXL and M-Class lessons during WIN blocks. We have added instructional intervention paraprofessionals. Thank you for the support of the board for that to help with our interventions. We've updated the building master schedule to incorporate more time as well. In math, we saw significant gains, particularly in our 4th grade, so we were trying to replicate across all grade levels the success that they have been seeing for a number of years now. We're working on alignment of instructional strategies, and based on data, we are also aligning curriculum delivery based on needs identified through data analysis. With the help of the instructional interventional paraprofessionals, we're increasing the delivery of intervention strategies. IXL has also been incorporated in math instruction during the core instructional block. We used to have a WIN block, but with the increase in literacy time, we lost the math WIN block, and we've now incorporated IXL into our math block, which our staff has, 1, fully supported, and 2, actually incorporated into some of the instruction at the end of their core block. In science, it's important to note that our current standards are sunsetting at the end of this school year, and the PA Steels are coming in. We feel confident that we're in a good place right now with our curriculum. We continue to work on it, obviously, but the use of mystery science is a positive in our building, and we are very comfortable and excited to see where we stand with the field test coming this year. In SEL, specifically, we continue to implement Second Step, which is our social emotional Tier 1 curriculum. We continue to implement zones of regulation and do daily check-ins with our students and have explicit lessons. Zones of regulation is a curriculum related to emotional awareness and control for our students. We continue to partner with the Centers of Humanistic Change and Valley Youth House for Tier 2 social skills. We are continuing to work on our cafeteria culture with the selection of jobs and different incentives that we're using in the cafeteria. Our school-wide positive behavior support system, we're focusing on positive reinforcement versus punishment and continuing to reinforce the use of our token economy system. We have been collaborating with a consultant from the Centennial School. She's providing professional development to our faculty on addressing increasingly more difficult behaviors. And finally, our Title I parental feedback surveys and end-of-year staff surveys have shown over the past couple of years that we need to improve upon parental communication. So we're focusing on involving parents at a greater level with building events by improving communication to the home. This includes continued weekly newsletters, providing parental support through our family engagement meetings, through a parenting series that we are offering, and also changing our protocol in terms of communication when there is a classroom issue by requiring faculty to make a phone call instead of relying on electronic communication. So that concludes all of the information for Slatington Elementary. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Howard for the middle school.
Thank you, Mr. Briner. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the time tonight. I'll be presenting information about the middle school, which of course houses grades 7, and 8. Next slide, please, Dr. Stoker. The first slide for us represents the middle school's regular attendance rate, remember from 22-23, which came in at just a hair above 85%. So a few points down from the year prior and several points above the state average. So we did earn that green rating for meeting the performance standard in attendance. For the rest of the school year, our building level office team will be looking at ways to improve how we do attendance enforcement, including our school attendance improvement conferences, which our new AP, Mr. Williams, is taking lead on and leading the attendance improvement team we have at the middle school. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get very close to that 94% goal very quickly. Next slide, please. This slide shows the achievement data for the middle school in a composite of both grades with the exception of science, which is just taken by 8th grade students. You'll see that each of the tested content areas are in the red designation, indicating the interim target is not met. However, what you will see on our subsequent slides will show that the middle school has continued to make incremental gains in each of these content areas in the last 3 years, ultimately working toward reaching those goals. In ELA, 54.7% of students were proficient or advanced. This is above the statewide average. In math, we had 27.8% of students proficient or advanced. This one is below the statewide average. And in science, we were just above 56% at proficient and advanced. And this is very close to that statewide average, just a few points shy of that mark. Next slide, please, Dr. Stoker. This slide shows the students scoring advanced. In ELA, we were at 16.5% scoring advanced. That's about 4% above the statewide average. In math, we were at 6.7. This is below the statewide average, which presently, as you can see, is at 15. And in science, we were at 23.3 advanced. Again, close to the statewide average, but about 2.5 points shy of that mark. Each of these is up from years prior. Next slide, please. This table shows each level of achievement between the PSSA and the PASA exams. This one is specifically in ELA. In 7th grade, 50% of our students were proficient or advanced. That is about 3.5% below the statewide average. In 8th grade, 59.6% of students were proficient or advanced, and this is above the statewide average and a 16.7% increase over last school year in this grade level. Overall, the middle school was 1.7% above the statewide average in ELA achievement, and we continue to show gains over the last few years. Next slide, please. We'll move to mathematics. So this table again, PSSA and PASA math achievement. In 7th grade, 33% of students scored proficient or advanced. That is 1 point shy of the state average. In 8th grade, the number was 22.3, and this is about 6% below the statewide average. However, it does reflect a significant gain at the middle school, as that same number in 8th grade 2 years ago was 4%. So we've risen from 4% 2 years ago up now into the 20s. Overall, the middle school stands at 27.8% proficient or advanced in math. That is below the statewide average. Next slide, please. Our keystone achievement in Algebra 1 does look different. Students taking Algebra 1 scored a 97.3% proficient or advanced. The middle school ran 2 sections of Algebra 1 last year. Our achievement in Algebra 1 is 20% higher than the year prior and shows improvement of just about 40% over the last 3 years. Next slide, please. This slide shows achievement on the 8th grade science, PSSA, and PASA assessments. 56.3% of students were proficient or advanced. This is approximately 23% above the year prior. Next slide, please. Now we're moving away from achievement, the number of proficient and advanced, into growth. So these growth scores are across all 3 PSSA tested subjects. ELA rated in the green because our growth rate of 76 surpassed the statewide growth standard. We were also above the state average. We were red in math. Our score was 66.3, which is about 3.5 points away from the statewide growth standard. We were in the red in science, having a growth score of 58. And again, that is under the statewide growth standard. The next few slides will break these growth numbers out specifically by grade level in the same manner you saw from Mr. Briner's slides. Next slide, please. This slide shows the grade level breakdown in ELA for growth. We are green in both 7th and 8th grades, and consequently in the green across the building, both grade levels. Next slide, please. The numbers for mathematics show us in the red for growth. That is in both 7th and 8th grade. So while we're seeing good growth, good achievement increases in mathematics, we need to work on the growth of the students as we continue to prepare for this. Next slide, please. In Algebra 1, we did go to the dark blue, showing that students were well above the growth standard on their, for their algebra scores. Next slide, please. This is the growth for science. The slide shows the growth score again, 8th grade science. We were in the red level, but very close to getting to that yellow level. So again, we had good achievement increases, but we have to work on the growth. Next slide, please. This is the college and career readiness standard. The middle school did earn a 100% of that. This exceeded the statewide average of 91.4 and also the statewide performance standard, which was a 98. Next slide, please. This table shows a historical look at the middle school's building scores. As previously stated, the state has moved away from using a single value and now has more of a dashboard system for reporting. However, building scores do show a progression over time. So from these scores, you can see the middle school has been incrementally growing each year. Our score presently stands at a 66.1, which is the highest one on record. Next slide, please. And this slide finally shows the focuses we have going at the middle school. So we are looking to implement new curricula and approaches in our tested subjects, specifically moving to the Amplified program in ELA, which will keep us consistent with what is happening at the elementary level, taking the next logical progression and steps in ELA. We are looking to develop accelerated courses in 7th grade and 8th grade ELA as well. We have some natural acceleration in mathematics where in 8th grade students can take Algebra 1 instead of the kind of traditional pre-algebra track. We want to do something similar for 7th and 8th grade in ELA to push our more advanced students even further. I will have more information on that at an education committee when we present our curriculum guide updates for the year. So look forward to that. We also want to begin looking at 7th and 8th grade general, or what's known as integrated science courses. Presently, we run our middle school science program as 7th grade life science, 8th grade earth and space. Nothing wrong with that approach, but it doesn't necessarily prepare students in how they're assessed. For example, on the 8th grade science assessment, the PSSA, only about 17% of the content on that exam is actually earth and space science, despite the students spending the bulk of the year in that area. So that leaves that teacher to do a lot of review and a lot of catch up at certain times. We want to look at having a more integrated approach in 7th and 8th grade so that there's more cohesion in that, and it also exposes kids to different types of sciences in the middle school exploratory years, which is good. So we also want to develop a 7th grade accelerated math course. The reason for this, again, we have that acceleration naturally in Algebra 1 and 8th grade. We don't have a similar companion course in 7th grade. There are some discrepancies between the standards of 8th grade math and Algebra 1. It's two separate standard sets. So again, the Algebra 1 teacher has some review to do that is outside of Algebra 1. So we want to develop an accelerated course in 7th grade that is designed to really prep those kids to get to Algebra 1 and bring some of those 8th grade math standards down into 7th grade. Push them a little bit, fill in some of those gaps, and give more opportunity for advancement. We want to continue our enrichment and remediation program that is part of our, what we call our goal team period, that allows for instruction based on our IXL data, grouping kids by their area of need, and kids who are thriving getting exposed to other types of enrichment that are from other, other content areas, including our special subjects. We'll continue the Bulldogs Inspire program for essential skills, positive behavior, and college and career education. We are going to pursue hopefully our third consecutive School of Distinction status from CFES. We want to really level up the Inspire program and how we do our mentoring to improve growth mindset in our students, and also continue to build relationship with our community partners for our leadership seminars, campus visits, etc. By the time our students leave the middle school, they will have toured LCTI, L-Tri-C, and Kutztown University. So they get a technical school, a community college, and a university, all before they get to high school to help them make appropriate decisions. Recently we ran our Young Women's Leadership Seminar where we brought in one of our community members to try to motivate kids in career pathways. The Young Men's Leadership Seminar is coming up in March. I'll keep you posted on that. We will continue professional development and literacy and engagement. Right now we are using the Schools to Watch toolkit to guide our instructional strategies and assessment. And then in SEL, we do use the past survey results to design student activities and also supplemental lessons throughout the year. At this time, I will turn things over to Dr. Bali and the high school. All yours.
Thanks, Mr. Hauser. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you as always. All right, here we are. Last but not least, Northern Lehigh High School. Next slide, please. So we'll first take a look at our attendance. The high school's attendance rate for the 23-24 school year, actually this is 22-23, is 87.2%. This is approximately 10 points above the statewide average. We earned a green rating for meeting the performance standard in attendance. Through the rest of the school year, our building level office team will be looking at ways, as Mr. Hauser said, to continue to improve our attendance and our school improvement attendance meetings with our families. Next slide, please. All right, the values on this slide shows the students at the high school in Keystone Literature Trigger courses during the 23-24 school year who tested in the winter or spring for the first time and who earned advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. The combined percentage of students who were advanced or proficient in literature was 53.3, which was up from 46.2 in 22-23. You don't see that number there, but I'll say that again. 53.3% up from last year, 46.2. We are directly in line there with the statewide average on this exam. And it is important to note again that these scores do not get reported as shown. Instead, they are banked until the student's 11th grade year. And we'll see that in a few slides. Next slide, please. All right, the values on this slide show the students at the high school in Keystone Algebra 1 trigger courses during 23-24 school year. The combined percentage of students who were advanced or proficient in Algebra 1 was 23%, which was slightly up from last year's 21%. Please remember, as Mr. Hauser showed, there is a significant number of students in grade 8 who have already taken this assessment and scored very well. I believe it was around 98% proficient or advanced. So it is important to note again that these students will get reported and banked on the 11th grade year, and you'll see that again in a few slides. All right, our next slide, please. High school Keystone Biology Achievement. This is for the biology trigger courses during the 23-24 school year who tested in the winter or spring for the first time and who scored advanced, proficient, basic, or below basic. The combined percentage of students who were advanced or proficient in biology, as you see there in the bottom, is 47%. That's the color there in red. That was up from 42.7 last year. And again, remember that these scores will be banked and reported again on Future Ready when they're in 11th grade students. Next slide, please. The scores we are going to talk about now are those 11th grade cohort students. So students who were 11th graders during last year, so 23-24 school year. In literature, 51% of all students at Northern Lehigh High School were proficient or advanced. This was down slightly from last year at 52%. We are there close to the state average of 53.9. In Algebra 1, 46% of the students were proficient or advanced. This was significant growth from last year's cohort, which was only at 25%. We exceeded the state average of 40%. And then in biology, 41% of all students at the high school were proficient or advanced. This is down a bit from last year's 44%, and we did not meet the state average of 59%. Next slide, please. In literature, this is our Future Ready achievement. This is showing the advanced level. So those students that reached advanced. So for in literature, 8% of students reached the advanced level. This is a bit below the state average of 12%. In Algebra 1, 14% of the students reached the advanced level. This is just below the state average of 15%. And in biology, 13.2% of students reached the advanced level, and this is below the state average of 25.8% of students who reached the advanced levels. Next slide, please. All right, this shows our Future Ready growth. In ELA, literature, growth for all students at Northern Lehigh High School was 78. This is up from last year's score of 54. This is also above the statewide average growth score of 75.4. In math, the high school students exceeded the growth standard and scored a 90, up from last year's score of 89, and we were significantly higher than the state average score of 75. And then that last column there in biology, we exceeded again the standard for growth with 100, which is significantly up from last year where we were at 56, and we are significantly above the state average of 74.7. Next slide. This group of students met the level of expected growth. This is literature growth. This shows great gains from last year's scores, well below the level of expected growth. We are continuing to focus on curriculum resources and pacing, which has brought consistency as well as a high level of rigor to this department. Next slide, please. All right, this is showing our Algebra 1 growth. This group of students is well above the expected level of expected growth. This also shows great gains from last year's score of above the level of expected growth. Our multi-tiered focus in the area of math, again, curriculum consistency, rigor, and pacing will continue. Next slide, please. This slide shows the growth indicator for the students who took the biology keystone in the 23-24 school year. As you can see, our students scored in the well above category, which tells us that we have exceeded the growth standard. This is significantly better than last year's group of students who scored well below the level of expected growth. Next slide, please. The high school earned 100% on the Career Standards benchmark for our 11th grade class. This exceeded the statewide average of 91.4% and the performance standard for the state of 98. Next slide, please. Please note that graduation is a lagging indicator. So as you can see, the graduation data is from the 22-23 school year. The high school exceeded the state average of 87.6 and is actually very close to the 2033 goal of 92.4. The industry-based learning standard is based on 23-24 school year data, so last year. The high school earned 53.8% in this category. This is well above the state average of 39.2, as well as well above the statewide performance standard of 30.7. Industry credentials include assessments like the NOCD, which our students take at LCTI. Also, just interesting information, for the 23-24 school year, we had 141 students participating in our CTC of the 476 students that we had at the high school. So that's nearly 30% of our high school students attend LCTI in some capacity. It's pretty neat stuff. All right. Pretty great slide here. This table shows a historical look at the high school's building scores. As previously stated, the state has moved away from using a single indicator and rather has moved to a dashboard of multiple indicators. Building scores do show a progression over time. You can see that the high school had a significant increase this year from last year of about 10 points. Next slide, please. Our AP scores. This is our AP results slide. Our AP scores in calculus improved this year up to an average scores of a 4. We were right around a 3 or below, just below a 3 in the other areas listed. Next slide, please. This slide shows the number of graduating seniors who took the SAT and the average scores that they earned. So last year, 2023 average was a 1086. This past year, our 2024 average was an average of 1131. Approximately 46% of the state's students took the SAT. All right, so our final slide here. So what are we doing? And what are we going to continue to do? So as you see there for ELA, math, and science, they're all very similar things, and we're doing that for a reason. We knew we had to improve at the high school. So we really went back to basics, and we simplified our approach to what we were doing. So there was a lot of work on, I'm going to kind of go up from the bottom there, that bottom bullet, ELA. Continuation of consistent curriculum pacing. We talk about rigor, we talk about engagement. If the students are not engaged, they are not learning. So that is a huge focus in our block schedule at the high school. Engagement, rigor, bell-to-bell learning. 86 minutes is a long time. So we expect them to be engaged, and that's what our professional development, our department time, everything we're doing is to that end. We also have, as you all know very well, the implementation of our Lunch and Learn initiative at the high school. We are extremely proud of that. We believe we are going to be a model in the Lehigh Valley in Northampton County. This is specifically designed for so many things, but specifically for academics. It is designed time for students to be able to receive intervention and enrichment, to be able to access their teachers whenever they need them and for whatever reason they need them for. That has been a tremendous implementation of 70 minutes of time during the day where kids can get help and support in the areas that they need. So that is across all content areas. That you heard me talk about the focus on bell-to-bell instruction within the block and rigor and engagement. So for social emotional learning, similar to what Mr. Hauser talked about, the PBIS, essential skills, we try to weave that in everything we do, from our Lunch and Learn initiative to our academics. We talk about perseverance, we talk about teamwork, we talk about agility, flexibility, leadership, all of that in our daily teaching and learning. And then lastly, our child study team, we're very proud of that. That is unheard of almost at a high school level with MTSS. You have child study, you have MTS, RTII. We have that at our high school, and we're proud of that. And then we continue the great work that the middle school does with CFES, and we've really tried to educate our students more than ever this year on the importance of what those pathways mean, and that there isn't a single pathway, but there's multiple pathways, and just trying to give them a purpose for what those pathways are. So again, thank you for your support as always, and thank you.
So our last group of slides that we have this evening will delve a little bit into some of our subgroups. Mrs. Dada and I will lead that discussion. Historically underperforming populations typically include economically disadvantaged, multilingual learners, and special education students with an IEP. This slide shows performance levels for students who are economically disadvantaged in comparison to the all-student group. At Slatington, students who were considered economically disadvantaged decreased slightly in ELA from the previous year, which was 37.6%, and increased in math and science from the previous year, which was 25.7% for math and 60.3% for science. But they were between 6 and 10 percentage points less than the all-student group for this year in all areas. In the middle school, the economically disadvantaged group of students increased slightly in ELA and more so in science. It was 39.4% in ELA and 30.6% in science the previous year, and decreased a bit in math from 18% the previous year. Overall, this group is still about 15 percentage points less than the all-student group in achievement for this year in all areas. At the high school, the economically disadvantaged population increased almost 20 percentage points in math from 16.7 last year, and decreased in ELA and science 5 to 10 percentage points from last year. It was 44.2% in ELA and 39.5% in science the previous year. However, the economically disadvantaged group was between 10 and 12 percentage points less than the all-student group in achievement across all 3 Keystone exams. During the 23-24 school year, there were approximately 60 students in the English Language Development Program. Since the minimum reporting count for each school was not met for state tests, results for ESL cohorts in each building were not reported. Another assessment we look at for our multilingual learners is the WIDA, or the Access for ELS, or the Alternate Access for ELS, which is an annual assessment which we're actually in the process of giving right now for the 24-25 school year. It measures the English proficiency of students across 4 categories, including reading, writing, speaking, and listening. From these 4 domains, an overall score is produced from 1 to 6. This slide shows average scores. We examine these on an individual basis as students in ELDP enter at varying levels, and we compare their growth across those baseline results to where they are over the course of their time here with us at Northern Lehigh.
Okay, next slide is a prehistoric view of our state assessment for our alternative assessment for Pennsylvania for our students with disabilities. So while the state percentage of students with disabilities continues to rise, the state still only allows for 1% of those tested students to take the PASA, or that alternative assessment. As you can see, the district's been working towards meeting the allowable amount, and in 2021-22 achieved the goal. This year, because of multiple students moving into the district, as well as an increase in special education population within the district, we had to apply for the waiver again. The district went through the compliance monitoring this year as well, and this is an area that we'll have to address through that avenue. Decision for a student to take the PASA is an IEP team decision. Okay. Okay, so special education achievement for the PASA, or for the PSSAs, I don't have the old data. So as you can see though, the ELA for Slatington Elementary has been trending down. The math also has gone down. However, in science, we have seen an increase. The middle school ELA has gone up, and the math algebra 1 has gone up, and science is non-reportable. There's not enough students. Same thing with the high school.
So these are the areas that we would focus on for our historically underperforming groups of students. Our economically disadvantaged students, we try to ensure that their other basic needs are met. We're doing that through our food services department with CE free breakfast and lunch, and our Backpack Buddies program. We also provide targeted interventions through our multi-tiered systems of support, and we try to engage families in the educational program for the students that are economically disadvantaged.
And in special education, we're going to continue to try to decrease the students that are participating in that alternative assessment of PASA. With that, we will then be increasing the students that will be taking the PSSAs in the grades 8 and 11. We will also continue to increase student inclusion rates at all the grade levels.
As far as our multilingual learners, we'd like to thank the board for allowing us to hire an additional teacher to meet the growing needs of our English language development program. That teacher has now become one of the 4 teachers across the K through 12 spectrum, we have 1 teacher in each building to meet the needs of our multilingual learners. We're also focusing on professional development and strategies to address learning needs of our students, especially newcomers. We talked as early or as recent as today about that. Mr. Pine, Ms. Dunham, and myself and our ESL teachers are preparing some trainings coming up with regard to AI and leveraging those tools to help our MLLs in their classrooms. We're also looking to engage families more in the educational program through adult ESL classes, which are held typically on Monday nights. We've done that in the fall, and we're looking to do that again starting in February and the spring through the end of the school year, and then also including our families on field trips along with the students to engage them in the educational program. Additionally, at this time, I'd like to announce that in December, school districts were contacted with regard to any of their schools that were part of school improvement. Dr. Link did not get that phone call or email, which is a really good thing. So we do not have any of our schools that are on school improvement this year. That's the phone call that you don't want to get. Any questions or comments at this time? I understand it's a lot to digest, and we're certainly here to answer questions. So if you have anything and you want to email those or share those with us, you can certainly do that, and we can get back to you with some answers as well. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for your presentation. Anything else, Dr. Stoker?
That is my report.
Thank you. Boy, that was a short one. Is someone going to do the Sherry thing? Okay.
Again, so thank you to the administrative team for putting that presentation together. The annual data presentation is a lot of work, a lot of data to work through, and I appreciate everybody's efforts on that. We know where our work lies ahead when it comes to achievement and growth, and I'm very confident with a lot of the recent changes we've made that we're going to continue to see those upward trends. I am going to present on behalf of Mrs. Molitoris, who could not be here this evening, for the business manager's report. She would like me to share that in front of you. You have, either in front of you or forthcoming via email, you have the general operating budgets for the CLIU and for L-Tri-C. L-Tri-Cs will be coming via email. Also in front of you in that black booklet, you have the distribution of the single audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. We had a very positive audit report again. There'll be a motion for those 2 budgets and for the audit report on the February agenda for your approval. If you do have questions about that between now and then, please direct them to Mrs. Molitoris. Also, this evening, I need to share the information on the post-issuance compliance. Northern Lehigh School District has fulfilled its obligation to annually file post-issuance continuing disclosure information for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024 on the Electronic Municipal Market Access, or EMA, website. This filing is a requirement for districts with outstanding municipal bond issues and was completed on December 27, 2024. Reporting that these filings have been completed must be reported at a scheduled board meeting to fulfill reporting obligations. Our obligations are now fulfilled. And that concludes the business manager's report for this evening. Mr. Green.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to item K. An executive session was held at 6:15. We discussed negotiations and some personnel items. Speaking of personnel, we're going to move into personnel, and I would like to amend that. Item D2, it says second shift custodian maintenance. It should say second shift custodian. And then the next line, the salary, should say step 1 of the custodian's pay schedule. So if you want to make those changes. And then going down to item F, Mr. Fritz, that's a prorated number, that 3922. And Winford, that should say 1,010, not 1,020. So minor little changes there, but with that, is there a motion to approve the items under personnel, please?
So moved.
There's a motion, second? Chad, is that? Yeah. Yep. All those, any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. We're all
Mr.
ready
Green,
I'm sorry?
We can just welcome one of our newest members this evening.
Oh, sure.
In our Education Technology Department, we have Mr. Ricardo Babylonia. Did I say that correctly? Absolutely. Okay, welcome to Northern Lehigh. We're excited to work with you. And also an alumnus of Northern Lehigh, so welcome back.
Welcome. Okay, we're on it. E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, we're down to policy, I think, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay, you have 11 items under policy. Is there a motion to approve the policy items?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any question on the policies? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. Got a couple of conferences there, 3 of them. Is there a motion to approve the conferences?
So moved.
Motion, second?
Second.
I'm sorry, we're down here somewhere.
Rhonda.
Thank you. Any questions on the conferences? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. We have 2 items under curriculum and instruction. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. I have nothing under old business. I don't know why we do this, but anyway, new business, items A and B. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. Got a couple financial items there. Is there a motion to approve the financial items?
So moved.
Motion, second. Thank you. Questions on the financial items? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. We have 1 item under legal. Is there a motion to approve the legal item?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? Thank you. I don't think we can discuss that in public, so I'm going to say all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. I have nothing under correspondence. Anyone else have any correspondence? No. Thank you. I know it's getting late, but I just want to take a minute, and I had the pleasure, was it 2 weeks ago, to visit the high school and see the Lunch and Learn program. And I'll tell you what, my socks were literally blown off. I mean, I had high hopes, I had high expectations, but I mean, people were getting their lunch, they were walking around, you saw groups of 3, 4, 5, 6 students with their books open, working together. Some were by themselves, obviously studying, some were talking. I think there were 3 basketball games going on in the gym, including not only students, but some of the staff were also participating, which, you know, just people, hi, how you doing? How's it going? How's it going? And everybody would just get along with everyone. I mean, it was really, really, really fantastic. I can't say enough about it. It was good. I really, really, really liked it. I was there about 45 minutes, and everything seemed to go pretty well. So I know some other people want, if anybody wants to add anything to that.
I also had a tour of the Lunch and Learn in December, and I was a little leery when we mentioned the Lunch and Learn. Didn't know what the program was about. I had my doubts. But that day, I never seen anything like it. It was absolutely wonderful. I mean, for me to say that, I was just, again, blown away. Walking through that school, there were students, you know, in the classrooms preparing for the Keystones. There were students taking makeup tests. You know, I got to speak with the Spanish teacher and the students that were just hanging out in there with him. It was a joy. I got to see the pickleball. Didn't see basketball games, but I did get to see the pickleball. But again, the students just were just so polite and nice and just having their lunch, you know, just walking around, sitting around, talking. It was just a wonderful experience. And I definitely would recommend it. I would definitely recommend it. I mean, I had a great time. Love to come back and see it again. And yeah, it was wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I understand someone named Stoker puts on a pretty tough pickleball demonstration down there from time to time. I don't know, but I understand there's some incentives that you offer from time to time.
There's incentives given out for beating me, yes.
Thanks to all. We have a couple information items there. ABC. I think guests have had an opportunity to speak. If anyone else wants to say anything, no? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gary. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're finished.
Thank you, everyone.